Welcome to Dementia-Friendly Prince George's County, Maryland Northern Sector webinar series for caregivers. Today's topic is The Arts of Activities and Engagement by Melissa Long, sponsored by Prince George's County Government and Department of Family Services.
So today we're going to talk about the arts of activities and engagement. My name is Melissa Long. Our mission is to provide specialized care, support, and education for individuals in all stages of memory and cognitive impairment and their care partners in the community. And our vision is a community where those living with memory or cognitive impairment and their care partners can achieve the highest quality of life. No two people with dementia and no two families are alike in their needs for care and support, and maintaining or enhancing quality of life is the ultimate objective. So this is always something that's really important to me, quality over quantity. And so we're going to talk about those pieces. So I want to look at some data first. 1 in 4 older adults say they feel isolated from other people and at least some of the time, and 1 in 3 say they lack regular companionship, according to the new national poll on healthy aging conducted by the University of Michigan and AARP in 2019. So this was right before COVID. Approximately 28% or 13.8 million older adults live alone. And in that same study, referenced about living alone was highly associated with feeling lonely. 60% of those who lived alone reported feeling a lack of companionship, and 41% felt isolated. Isolated older adults are more likely to develop cardiovascular disease, to develop dementia, than those who are socially connected. Isolation can lead to greater mobility problems and decreased independence. This leads to a greater risk for falls, increased risk of severe depression, and early morbidity. AARP's Public Policy Institute's recent study confirms that Medicare is spending $6.7 billion annually as a result of this public health issue. It also indicates that the health risks of prolonged isolation are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I think that's really important to realize the value of the activities and what we do. So engagement, what is it? It is the psychological state of well-being, enjoyment, and active involvement that is triggered by meaningful activities and causes people with dementia to be absorbed by the activity, more energetic, and even a more positive mood. And there's been lots of research studies on that. A growing body of research has found that participation in activities is associated with increased confidence and self-esteem in dementia, an increased sense of well-being, and is deemed useful to improve social bonding and mood and to reduce loneliness, challenging behaviors, and medication consumption. So we find when people are on that set schedule and have those things to do, we're seeing a lot less psych meds being used, and we see people sleeping better. We see that those challenging behaviors that they may act out during sundowning decrease because they have something to engage in. When thinking about engagement, these tips can help you have a positive experience with somebody. Keep the person's skills and ability in mind. This is really important because as you go through this journey, the skills change. So for example, you may been able to play bridge before, but now you can only do solitaire, and then you can only match the cards, and then you can only shuffle them. So figuring out where that level is and focusing on the part that they can do is really important. Pay special attention to what the person enjoys. And just because you think they enjoy it, they might actually enjoy something else that you didn't know they like. So always try new things too to find that out, because as you're going through this journey, you're going back to those long-term memories, and there may have been something they did years ago that they don't do now that you didn't realize they like to do. Consider if the person begins activities without direction. So can they follow directions? Can you sit a puzzle in front of them and they can do it? Or do you need to cue them on what piece to move or colors? Okay. Be aware of physical deficits. You know, is there a mobility issue? That's what's keeping them from participating. Okay. Focus on enjoyment, not the achievement. This is so important. I had someone I played dominoes with, and we all know how to play dominoes, right? We match the numbers. Well, she just lined up all the tiles, but she was happier than a clam that she had lined up those tiles and they were in a straight line. And that was her version of dominoes in her level of dementia. Encourage involvement in daily life. Everyone wants a sense of purpose, whether that's cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, getting the mail, filling the bird feeder. Giving them that to be part of their structured activity. Relate activities to work life. And this really ties into working with men because a lot of them were work driven and don't have a lot of leisure interests a lot of the time we find in this field. So focusing on that, if you have a woman who works third shift as a nurse, do we need to give her fake medical charts to audit for us or go through? If the gentleman was an accountant, do we put together a book for him to do some accounting so we can tie in with all of that? Look for their favorite things. Find their favorites and keep them in your back pockets. When they're having a rough day and something else doesn't work, you always have a go-to that you know will work. Consider the time of day. This is really important. If someone hasn't had a good night's sleep, they're not going to be as productive in the morning. If they always have behaviors in the afternoon, do we give them activities to do at that time to help them engage? So we just need to figure out what time works best. Some people aren't good after lunch because they need to nap, so it's not a good time to visit. Adjust activities to their disease stage, like we talked about. How do we simplify these things? Another one with knitting, they can't knit anymore with the, with the 2 needles, but could you get a knitting wheel that you crank after you put the yarn on it? Or do we just have them roll balls of yarn? Just the sense of touching that can be important. Social engagement contributes to greater physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being in older adults. So without engagement is the blue lines on this graph. So their physical health, their mental health, the emotional health, and their overall well-being are all below 5. But when you tie in engagement, all of them are over 5, if not 6 and almost 7. So that shows you the value behind doing those things. Engagement provides people with what? Well, it provides them with the ability to live longer. They are less likely to suffer from cognitive decline or depression, experience decreased risk of disability and functional mobility decline. So it's really important to get them engaged and tied in with these things in whatever way it may be for them. In other words, people who are engaged are healthier, active, and contribute to their communities and stay connected. This word cloud describes the feelings expressed by older adults who indicated they are engaged in various activities in their community. They're happy, they're helpful, they're connected, they're valued, they're responsible, they're engaged and humbled, they're obligated and appreciated, and they're relevant still, and they're a community member and they feel fulfilled and they're present. They're joyful and included and contributing and satisfied and being heard. All of us want these feelings. And so it's so important, however we can find a way to have someone included, even if it's just stuffing an envelope for a church, for a mailer, we need to find those things that give people that joy. So what are some challenges at home? So when you think of your home and the things that you're challenged with, you might have a person who can't do the same activities anymore. They used to be able to bake the chocolate chip cookies, and that's just not going to happen. So how do you accommodate that? The person can't do things independently, and they just follow you around like a little puppy. How do you deal with that? Previous activities are not safe for them anymore. Maybe at one point they could cut all the potatoes, but now having them use a knife probably isn't the safest thing anymore. They don't want to leave home. Their home is their safe spot. So how do you get things to them at that point? Person refuses when asked if they want to participate. Are they actually meaning no? Or is that just one of their go-to words? Do they have delusions? Are they paranoid? Are they exit seeking? Are they confused? So we need to look at some different ways to communicate with them, because all of these things can be tied back to communication. So some techniques. The 90-second rule is really important. So someone with dementia, what they're thinking up here takes a while to get down here. So we need to give them 90 seconds. So we ask them, what would you like to wear today? And you start that 90-second clock. They're not answering you. They're not answering you. The 90 seconds is up. So you switch it. Would you like to wear slacks or a dress to church? So they get 2 options. You start that 90 seconds over again. Time goes and they're still not answering. So then you pull out the dress and go, would you like to wear this dress? So that you get a yes or no question. Be honest with them as things are happening for the things that aren't going to trigger behaviors, and also humor. People with a good sense of humor have a better sense of life, and it is so true. We love to laugh, and that can take away some of the tension when someone's frustrated with dementia and the things that they need to do. It also helps you as the caregiver look at things in a lighter light. So your approach, if you notice a person's attention span waning or frustration level increasing, it's likely time to end or modify the activities you're doing. So do you need to help get the activities started? If you can't set the dominoes there, do you put them in piles for them to match colors or numbers? Offer support and supervision. You may have to sit there with them and give them guidance through the whole entire thing. Concentrate on the process, not the result. If you're playing checkers with your dad and he starts moving your pieces, don't correct him. Just keep playing the game. If he's enjoying it, that's all that matters. Be flexible. Today, they might be more than happy to help pick the lettuce from the garden, but tomorrow they're going to scream at you. So be ready to try something else. I say 5 extra things in my back pocket as a backup plan. Break activities into simple, easy to follow steps. When you think about brushing your teeth, it can be up to 40 steps depending on where you are in your home to do that task. So when you tell someone with dementia, go brush your teeth, that's overwhelming for them because their brain can't process all the pieces for that. So when you look at activities, if you tell them to write a letter to a family member, that can be very frustrating and stressful. So if you put out a pen and paper and say, can you write a sentence to Bob? Keep it simple. Then you can address the envelope if it's too much for them to do, but then they can mail it. So decide what steps are most pertinent for them to feel that sense of purpose. Assist with difficult parts of the task. Like I said, if addressing it's too much, you address the envelope and then they can walk it out to the mailbox. Let the individual know he or she is needed. They want that sense of value that they're still contributing to not only their life, but the life around them. Make the connection. When we talk about communication, over 50% of our communication is they read the nonverbal cues. So we want to make sure that we're bringing that to the table, and it's not all verses with just words. Don't criticize or correct them. This is a big thing I've asked a lot of people in the earlier stages of dementia, and they said, I hate when people tell me, don't you remember, or that's wrong, because it doesn't make me feel good. So we need to do better. It's hard, we're human, but we need to not do the mom approach and correct, but just meet them where they're at. We need to encourage self-expression. I had a gentleman who was a general in the Army, but for some reason, when he got dementia, he always wore red socks. And we asked him why. And he said, because they help me jump out of the planes better. And he had never worn red socks before, and we went with it. And that was his thing. He's had a huge collection of red socks. Involve the person through conversation. Even if they can't communicate back to you or they look like they're staring in space, they're still there. They're still a person. And we don't know how much they're listening to or absorbing or understanding in the brain. We don't know what neurons are working in that moment. So we need to include them even if they can't answer. And we find this a lot of times in communities where the staff thinks it's easier to say, hey, how's Julie today, looking at the CNA sitting next to them instead of asking Julie how she's doing. We should always ask them first and then say, you know what, Julie, do you mind if Sally answers that question? Sally, how is Julie doing today? So we need to make sure we're acknowledging them. Substitute an activity for a behavior. So if we know that John gets riled up at 4 o'clock because that's shift change at a community, or that's normally when he would leave work when he worked, and that's where his timeline is, then we need to find something for him to do at 4 o'clock. Whether that is going for a walk, doing an exercise program, playing bingo, talking about sports and doing some trivia, whatever that might be, we can offset some of those behaviors with a distraction. And last but not least, try again later. It's not worth pushing something to be done if they're going to be upset. It doesn't get us anywhere. All the years I've worked in the world of dementia, I've never won an argument with someone with dementia, so it's not worth trying. I'll just save you from all of that. So next I want to look at a case study. So here's Dorothy. She has vascular dementia with a significant expressive aphasia. So what she says up here doesn't always come out here. self-propels in a wheelchair. She grew up on a farm with 10 brothers and sisters. She worked in a hospital cafeteria, has 4 daughters, 12 grandchildren, and many great and great-great-grandchildren. Her previous routines and interests including having coffee with cream and sugar, reading the newspaper, watching NASCAR on TV, talking with family, household and yard chores like dogs and kids, and her Christian faith. And she is not a joiner. She's very much an introvert. So when we look at that, what activities would we give her to do? What would we do with her? Well, here are some examples. She likes dogs, but having a dog in the house may be a trip hazard for her, right? And she can't take care of them because she's in the wheelchair. So we can get her an animatronic dog that barks and interacts with her, and she can pet it and have that engagement without it being a safety issue. Husking corn, she lived on a farm. I bet you she wouldn't mind doing those simple tasks that don't have a safety concern behind it. Providing her with the paper and coffee with her cream and sugar and making sure we know the right amount to give her is always important. That will make her feel loved because we remember that. So why do their activity abilities change? There's a lack of initiative due to brain changes, difficulty with planning and sequencing. They're distracted very easily. They're confused, sleepiness, depression, and anxiety. Some of this is due to brain changes, and some may also be due to comorbidities and medications that they're taking. So we have to kind of weigh that off. They're taking a new medication, all of a sudden they have a flat affect and won't engage in anything. That could be the medication. We need to make sure that the doctor is aware of those symptoms. They're not engaging because they're tired. Do we need to look at how they're sleeping at night and what we're providing them to help them sleep and have that healthy sleep that they need to have? Dementia, delirium, and depression all have very similar symptoms. Do we need to talk to the doctor and make sure it's not depression or delirium versus the dementia and having a decline? So what is an activity? Anything is an activity. Anyone can provide an activity. This does not have to be a recreational therapist. It does not have to be an activity director. Anyone can do this. An activity is asking grandma if she wants to sweep the stairs, or does she want to do some exercise, whether that's at a senior center or doing exercise on YouTube. Puzzles. Maybe this was a pastime of grandpa's. Do we have to simplify the puzzle? Sure, but we can figure that piece out. Some other examples of activities. Writing letters. This first picture on the left, I had a gentleman who wasn't driving anymore. He really wanted to do something for his wife. It was her birthday. And so we went into CVS, and it was overwhelming for him for the stage that he was in. But I was able to pick a couple things off the shelf and said, what one would you like to give her? And he picked one, and I picked a card because that was way overwhelming for him. And we went out to the car where it was quieter and less stimulation, and he wrote on the card and signed it for her birthday. And I got a gift bag to keep the wrapping simple, and we gave her a gift, and the joy on his face that he was able to buy her a birthday present again was a really big deal. So that's a sense of purpose. That's something he enjoyed doing in the past. The middle one here, the video. This person used to be a prima ballerina, and so we had to adapt, but we did the foot positions for ballet in her kitchen, sitting in a chair, and she got such joy out of it, and I advanced it into other things. We talked about famous ballets, and then we did an art project where I did silhouettes, and she decorated all the tutus, which then reminded her that she still had one of her tutus in the basement from when she competed for Miss America. And she actually, a week later, remembered and brought it out of storage for me to see. And that was a really big deal, that I had made such an impact with her with something that was so fond to her that she remembered a week later to show it to me. The ice tray, that's something simple, a kitchen task that doesn't harm anyone. If they spill it, nothing gets hurt. Just a little task that they can do and be a part of. The socks down there, this can either be for purpose or for a leisure activity. That pulls through their long-term memory. It's a simple task of matching socks. And as we know, we all have the dryer monster who eats a bunch of the socks. And so having someone that has that designated job makes them feel good. So we can keep it really simple or a little more complex depending on each person, but we want to pull from their long-term memory. And that's what the ballet thing did. And doing simple activities like the ice tray or the socks. So we want to pull from all of those pieces so that they feel like they have success. So benefits of activity: success, purposeful, meaningful, pleasure, overall good quality of life, to socialize or to be with others, to be productive or to contribute, to experience success, just to play. I find days where I know my schedule is really busy and I go find a playground and get on a swing. We all need to play, no matter how old we are, no matter what our life consists of. We are, in our culture, work driven, and we need to find more time to play. So I give everyone that homework to go find something to play, whether it's coloring, going on a swing, whatever it might be. I want you to play. Build and retaining skills. In the earlier stages, you're still able to do this with MCI and a little bit of early stage dementia. We want them to have a sense of control, that we're not telling them what to do, but that they're being able to make those decisions for themselves a little bit. And we want them to experience growth and learning. So they may not remember tomorrow what they did, but if they tried a new task they hadn't done before, that's growth for them. You know, they're learning something new, they may not remember it tomorrow. So engaging in activities can help regulate sleep patterns, which is a big thing that older adults struggle with for a couple of reasons. One, our sleeping patterns change as we age. Two, we're not very good in this day and age of doing healthy sleeping. We, as humans, are struggling more with that, especially because of technology, because why not grab your cell phone while you're laying in bed, or the iPad, or watching TV? We don't do those healthy techniques for sleeping. Medications can affect sleep, eating too late, drinking too much, so we have to constantly get up. So really pay attention to what could be keeping them awake. And sometimes you can't tell if people are not sleeping. So a great thing to always do, and it's inexpensive, is get a Fitbit or some kind of smartwatch that someone could wear to bed, where you can track their sleeping. They also have devices that go under mattresses that you can do that, so you can get a better idea of how they're sleeping, because that can change their day. Decrease challenging behavior symptoms. So do we need to look at doing more passive activities at certain times because they get overstimulated? Do we need to give them a nap? Do a bathroom schedule, because maybe that's why they're having the behavior. So it's really good to write down and log when there's a behavior, what they're doing before, what they're doing during, and what they're doing after, and the time of day. And it might really give you some insight on what's triggering these behaviors and how we can work around them, whether it's medication, it's engagement, it's making sure they've got the bathroom, that they're fed because they're hungry. So we can figure out those pieces by writing it down and finding the pattern. Next, decrease agitation. So if we know that if the fan is running and that cool breeze hits them and they get really upset, not to have the fan on when they're in their room, okay? Or the lights are too bright. The sun is coming in their eyes. So we need to look at all those pieces of what things we can change to make it more productive for them. Decrease exit seeking. So why are they going outside, wanting to go outside? Is it because they just want to go for a walk? And do we need to schedule walks with them? They're trying to leave because there's lots of commotion and it's quieter past the exit door. And that's a real common one with shift changes in communities. Could they be exit seeking because they're looking for the bathroom, for food, for their room? I had a community do a really great thing. You can do this at your home too, where on the exit door, you put Barb's apartment number 2, and they think it's someone else's home and they won't go through the door. That's an easy fix. So we kind of want to figure out what's doing that. And do we need to, if we know they're always exit seeking at 4 o'clock, it could be when they're used to leaving from work. So do we need to give them an activity to do at 4 o'clock? Decrease depressive symptoms. So this is really important, as we know the depression rate is very high in older adults. So we can decrease that because they have purpose. And you'll see older adults do a couple different things. The depression can either lead to anger, it can lead to hiding and sleeping in their room more. So we want to get away from that and have them engaged, because they're not going to decline as quickly when they're engaged in things. Foster relationships and feeling of belonging. We want them to feel loved. We want them to feel that they're important. So how do we do that? How do we give them that sense of love? And sometimes that can be hard if they have a lot of behaviors, but we have to find what works for them. You and I've had people that have had a hard time with transitions. I find 2 or 3 of their favorite things, and whether it was me going to them or me bringing them to them. You know, I have one person that really liked milkshakes and French fries from McDonald's, so those went with me every time. That became our norm, and that's how I could engage with them. So figuring out what those things are really important. Provide structure and be part of the familiar routine. So this is so important. I worked with a client for 7 years, and I see her once a week, and she can't remember my name, but she knows my face and the feeling she gets when I'm around. And that's been a familiar routine for her, though she's moved through multiple communities. I have been her one constant. And so giving people that structure of, okay, we're going to get up at 8, we're going to take a shower, we're going to eat breakfast, we're going to get dressed, we're going to go to the day center, or we're going to have the aide come in and we're going to do exercise, or we're going to go for a walk. You know, giving them that break time too. You know, your brain gets tired after a little while, and they need that break to let the neurons kind of rebuild a little bit. So if you do something for 30 minutes and do a 10-minute break, that's okay. We don't want to do things constantly all day. Help build and retain skills. This gets harder as you go through the disease process. But, you know, for example, when someone gets that early diagnosis and they may have an upstairs room, do we move them to the downstairs where they can build and retain that skill of not going up the stairs to their bedroom, so that as they progress, they know where their spot is. So we look at different things like that. Improving their mood. You know, engaging in activities that can improve the mood are so important. If we know that Mr. Smith really loves dogs, we should engage him in dog therapy as much as we can. Whether that's animatronic or a live dog, you know, coming from a therapeutic program, so that we can give him those positive moments to focus on. So online resources help provide activities. Hands-on is always best, but you can supplement. So there's the American Art program through the Smithsonian does a dementia program, and now the Spy Museum just started one as well. And those are online. Exercise, the program Silver Sneakers actually has a ton of YouTube videos for that, and they're certified to work with older adults. There's playlists with the music on YouTube. Some are easier songs for older adults and common songs that they're used to. And then trivia. There's different trivia that are on there. They can be complicated, easier. So, you know, you can utilize those things to help guide you so that you're not trying to come up with things all the time. And it can give you a little break as a caregiver as well, if they're able to self-engage without the cueing while you do those things. All right, so some other things we can do. We talked about rolling yarn. So here's the knitting machine I was talking about. So used to be able to knit, can't do that anymore. So what we do as the caregiver is we start the yarn on the wheel, and then all they have to do is crank it, and it comes out the bottom, and it makes a tube. So you can either tie off one end and make it a sock. You can leave it open and do a tube scarf. So there's lots of things with that, or they can roll yarn. Next one, a balloon. This is super easy, super cheap. Blow up a balloon, put on some of their favorite music, and you guys hit it back and forth to each other. I never see a time that they're not happy and enjoying that. It works on range of motion. If they're standing, it's working on balance. Now, if you have someone who doesn't like something coming towards them, please don't do this activity, but you can gauge that with anyone. I've only had one person in my over 20 years that has had a problem with that, so it's not a common thing that I have seen. Someone who's good at woodworking, you know, we can simplify. He can't use all the big tools anymore, but we can get little kits that have, you know, just glue and sanding versus using the saw. So we can always simplify these different things. And then if they can't do that piece, we can go to a tool kit where everything's attached to it. It doesn't come apart, and they can play with the tools while doing the screws and bolts and nuts. All right. So 10 additional ideas for engaging individuals with dementia. A tablet or smartphone can be a useful tool for social connection, as well as access to puzzles, games, and other activities. These digital devices can be useful for people with dementia, from online games, puzzles, and dedicated dementia apps to Skype and to YouTube. They provide a way to stay engaged with others and enjoy a range of activities. Tap into memories of past events. For many people with dementia, a sense of movement and rhythm is often retained. Listening to music, dancing, or contact with babies, children, or animals provide positive feelings. People with dementia often have excellent memories of past events, and looking through old photos, memorabilia, and books can help a person to recall earlier times. So getting into that long-term memory is so key. To give an example, I want you to think of a tree trunk and all the rings. And as you have dementia, some of those outer rings start to go away, but that core essence of somebody never does. And so if there was something they were really passionate about, and you hit the chord with that and they remember it, I have the woman I worked with for over 7 years. I let her know what the election results were in Virginia, and she got really excited. Even though she doesn't vote, she's in later stage. That triggered for her because she was very passionate. She protested. So, politics were important to her, and she got excited about the results from last week's election. So, finding those things that they thrive off of. Continue to go to outings as long as you can, and as long as the person with dementia is comfortable with them. So people in early stages of dementia may still enjoy going out to places they enjoyed in the past. For example, the person might enjoy going to a favorite restaurant, park, shopping, mall, swimming pool, museum, or theater. Keep going to these outings as long as you and they are comfortable with them. And I do encourage this because it gets them out and about. They're doing the things that they love. They still feel like they have normalcy in their life because they've had a lot thrown at them with this diagnosis, and they feel like everything's being taken away. So as much as we can give them for as long as we can give it to them is key. Dance to music from their generation. Find a CD of music from your loved one's time. If they are able, encourage them to dance and shuffle around a bit with you. They will not only benefit from the activity, but from the music of their generation. Music's the last thing to go. So I tell people to encourage all the time. And I haven't found any participant that won't at least tap their foot at some point. But if you're lucky enough, they'll get up and dance and have a good old time with it. So utilize music to your advantage. I tell to get everyone's playlist, because if I give you my playlist and I have you listen to Metallica, you may not be happy with that. So make a playlist of about 40 songs that you know that person or that you like, even for yourself, so that it's prepared for if you're ever in this journey one day. Restorative yoga is ideal for improving balance and flexibility. Restorative yoga is a lower intensity form of yoga focused on breathing, posture, and gentle movements. Yoga can improve balance and flexibility, which are both important for a group at higher risk for falls. Chair yoga is also a good alternative for people who have lost some mobility or have a lower body injury. So yoga is great, deals with anxiety and stress, works on balance and flexibility. You can do it in a chair, or you can do it on the floor, whatever they're most comfortable with, and you can adapt it. And there's plenty of those with the Silver Sneaker program online that I mentioned as well. Create a memory bag or box. These are some of my favorites. Fill the bag or box with items reminiscent of their late teens, early 20s. Scented products work well for this, as scents are strongly tied to memory. Try including soap, perfumes, aftershave, or holiday scents like gingerbread, pine, and peppermint. So when you think about these boxes, think about the 5 senses: smell, sight, touch, auditory, and feeling. So we want to do all those pieces, and how can we bring all of those to a box? So with gardening, you've got the seeds. You can have lavender in there using an essential oil. Have some soil that they can put their hands in and touch, all these things to look at. You can do some sounds with some music related to gardening, like chirping birds. So how can you bring all those pieces if this is someone who doesn't go outside anymore, right? Next, coin sorting. Sorting coins into small glass or ceramic bowls is fun, soothing, and may even give your senior a sense of purpose if you ask them to help sort your loose change. We do this even with colored poker chips if it's too complicated to do coins. But sorting something really easy, sorting the clothespins, sorting the silverware, the socks, whatever it might be. I had someone who was really into stamps, and I had them sort those. So you can get creative with what the sorting is, but it's fun to do something that's not typical and that might bring back old memories, especially if they really enjoyed coins. Try simple crafts. Try making beaded necklaces or decorating a bird feeder. A simple one, you roll a pine cone in peanut butter and roll it in seeds. Put a string on it and hang it up. Producing items that give the person with dementia a sense of satisfaction and the chance to see it in use gives an activity purpose for them. You know, when we have them do a craft that's made out of paper plates, they're like, one, I'm not a kid. Two, who is this for? And as a caregiver, we get these things stacked up. So if we can give them something that's purposeful and that can be used, it's a win-win for everybody. Have some spa time and engage the senses with hand and arm massages. This is a really great one. It helps relax people. You can't have pain and pleasure at the same time, so it may help with minor aches and pains as well because they're focusing on the comfort of the massage. Dementia activities for spa time are calming and enjoyable. Begin with relaxing music and maybe string up some small twinkling lights or have a few flameless battery candles set around for ambience. Aromatherapy is also wonderful, such as lavender, which helps calm and relax, or rose, lemon, and vanilla. And if it's in the mister, that's great. If you're planning on putting it on the skin, do not do direct contact unless there's a base oil. And I really do encourage, if you're going to put oil on skin, that you get permission from the doctor because you don't want it to contraindicate with any medications they're taking. Baking cookies. Who doesn't like cookies? The smell of them, the touch of them. Being bad and eating the raw dough, whatever the piece may be for that. Most of us love the smell of these cookies. The aromatherapy value can be especially meaningful for people with dementia. It can also be an opportunity to reminisce about baking or cooking favorite family treats. I grew up as a child making hard candy every Christmas with my cousins and my aunts and uncles. So that will always have a fond memory for me. I can remember my uncle screaming out, softball, hardball, as the candy hardened. So those will always have fond memories with me. So you never know what kind of food memories people have. And so being able to recreate those for them can be really important. The magic activities is not what is done, it's in the doing. Here's my lady who did dominoes, who just loved them in a straight line. And so she was very content with this.